Now I want to take you through my thought process in creating this knife. Now this is for a Kickstarter called BB Blast. There is a link in the description if you want to check that out. But this knife is designed to be 3D printed. So that's why there's not going to be a lot of overhangs. Now as you can see here, I've just started kind of like very basic shaping it out. Now I'm just going through kind of like a blocking method. I just want to get the shapes right. Just trying to get all the levels and make it look presentable before we go into more of the details. Now I am using a lot of modifiers because I'm trying to save myself a lot of work, and I'm replicating those modifiers across all the other pieces. Now I've kept everything separate. With the handle here, I've kept that as my central piece. So all the modifiers, the mirror modifier, especially off the Z, is based off the handle because I know that is my central point there. With that, I haven't done any cutouts yet. But like I said, we're just lining it up, building up those layers and just trying to get the shapes right before we can start really focusing on getting the correct flow of the knife. Now, I'm not really a knife person, so it was a bit of a challenge to get to this point. Normally, obviously, if you guys follow my channel, it's normally a lot of sci-fi things, but you know, I wanted to give myself a bit of a challenge, and so this is kind of like how I went. Using a lot of the proportional editing tool, you just press O for that. This video is 2.5 hours long, so if you actually want me to release the full video unedited, let me know in the description below, and yeah, I'll put it up. And I actually talk through the whole process step by step of what I've created. I did try and make sure that my geometry was still really good. And obviously this is because I'm going into the 3D printer and I don't need the 3D printer stuffing up what I've designed. When I'm talking through the video as well, technically it should be a knife that kind of snaps back in with it itself, but I didn't worry about creating that mechanic. But as you can see here, there's a lot of the elements of creating sci-fi panels that I've previously done. And I've brought that into creating this system. So right there as well, we can see that I did edge loops, added an extra loop, control numpad minus to shrink. So I've only got that central line, and then an Alt S to rescale it in along the normals. I don't know what else to say. It was good. As you can see, I started using the knife tool to chop it up a little bit more. Just to really start focusing on the details, because the overall shape is already present. But yeah, so I left these side bits to last because I wasn't really sure if I should be putting them in, because like I said, it's going to be 3D printed, and holding them is just going to feel a little bit weird. Now the way this is going to be designed is with 3 prints, so top and bottom, and the blade is separate. Now the top and bottom is actually going to be probably PLA, but the blade itself would be a rubber material so that, you know, you can actually play with it, so on and so forth. But that's kind of like the idea behind it. Really tried to focus on the requirements of what I needed to do. Here you can see that I'm applying a material just to kind of like start blocking everything out. The blade was a bit interesting to make because there's various shapes and angles and so on and so forth. But kind of like got there in the end. The tip was a little bit problematic because there's just so much geometry coming in at the one point. But kind of like after testing around here and there, getting it pretty much like a blade tip seemed to have worked fine. But there was a lot of manual kerfuffle to get it to that point. But yeah, a lot more knife tool, just cut that out, just getting those little bits and pieces, the little bits of, what do you call it? Details. Yeah, that's the word. But yeah, no, I'm pretty chuffed with how this turned out. Probably on Instagram, I will end up posting it once the actual knife is printed. Here, I tried to cut out the top piece so that the inside would be able to slot in. However, that did not work in the slightest. It was a pretty big problem to get it sorted, to cut it through. Using the ball tool, which is an add-on that's built into Blender, you just got to enable it. Control Alt numpad minus does a cut. I actually spent quite a bit of time, but eventually, hopefully it comes out. Eventually I just put another layer on top, and that seems to have done the trick. Here, the problem was I was trying to bevel, but there were too many vertices close to each other, so I was getting kind of like this overlapping bevel. But it was, I think I tried cleaned it up like 5-6 times, just didn't work. And then just, yeah, there we go. At this point here, I just went stuff it. I'll just put it over the top. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Pretty easy. By the way, I hate Houdini. That's a separate story. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. Check Instagram.